what kind of evidence you must submit or demonstrate to the asylum office or immigration court to prove your asylum case. First thing I would like to note is that the most important evidence, the most important form of evidence for your asylum case is your testimony, is what you say, is how you answer the questions, and how you explain what had happened to you and why you should be granted asylum. Now, in immigration office, it consists of your declaration, of your statement, which describes the events and the reasons for applying for asylum, and the events in terms of what had happened to you and why you think you would be persecuted in your home country if you return to your home country. In the immigration office, it's more in the form of question and answer with immigration, with the USCIS asylum officer, versus an immigration court, it's the questions and answers with your attorney or with the DHS attorney or the immigration judge. In the context of asylum, evidence can include many things. It does not necessarily have to be direct evidence proving every step described in your case or every part of your asylum story. Anything you can submit to support your case is helpful. This includes parts of your story which do not necessarily contain any details of the persecution. What I mean by this is, for example, let's say the asylum applicant claims that he or she has been attacked in a street on the way back from a school or work. And in the story, the applicant describes that he or she has been walking from the school or work to home, and then this had happened on the way, halfway to returning home. What would be the best evidence to prove that? Well, the best evidence would be some video recording showing that the applicant has been attacked and clearly persecuted on the way back. Well, that usually doesn't happen. What else can you show that will support the story? Well, let's say if the applicant has been admitted to a hospital or treated after the attack, and then you could submit medical records demonstrating that. And the hospital record could say that actually that the reasons for the injuries or the reasons for the condition of the applicant was because he or she was attacked. Now, the story, the hospital records wouldn't say why he was attacked or by whom he was attacked, but it would just demonstrate that he had these injuries. Now, this supports the story, but it doesn't necessarily support that, doesn't necessarily prove or demonstrate that this was the reason why the applicant was attacked. What if you don't have medical records? Well, maybe you have relatives or friends who saw what happened, and you want to get some affidavits or you want to get some letters from them confirming what had happened. Well, what if they're still in your home country and they're afraid to write this kind of letter? What can you do then? What is the best form to receive a letter or proof or some kind of an affidavit from your friends or relatives? Well, the best form is to get, of course, a notarized document signed by the friend or relative saying that this is what had happened, I witnessed it, this is my signature, and the notary stamp. However, it doesn't happen that way in many countries, because in some of the countries the notaries are the government employees, and the friend or relative who is writing the explanation, the letter, may be afraid to do so. Or in some cases they may be just hesitant, they may be lazy, they may not feel that kind of emergency or urgency for you to be able to write this story. So, well, what do you do then? And sometimes they may not be able to mail it to you. Now, if they do mail it, if you do receive any mail, any documents in the mail, it's very important to preserve the evidence that you received this document via mail, that you have envelopes, that you keep envelopes showing that the document or evidence came from your home country via mail It has the address where it came from. Why is this important? Is because unfortunately there are many applicants that apply, that try to take advantage of the system, of the asylum system, and they forge documents, they forge evidence, and some of them prepare documents or evidence here and they claim that to be coming from overseas, where USCIS office can actually, the Department of Homeland Security can actually do forensic analysis, and sometimes they reveal, sometimes may not. But the envelopes showing how those documents arrived or evidence arrived is helpful to demonstrate that it's not forged, that it actually really comes from that country of persecution of the applicant. Now, what if it cannot be mailed? Well, you have then electronic means. You have email. An individual can scan an email. And in fact, it's always a good idea to ask whoever is sending you a document or evidence via mail to first scan an email, because sometimes mail gets intercepted, it gets lost. This international mail is not perfect. So it's best idea to always to be able to get that evidence as soon as possible and to be able to preserve it. You want to get it soon via email, digital version first, and then you can ask them to put it in mail. And even if they don't, at least you have the scanned version of it. What if, again, what if the witness who can testify or who can support your case is not willing to write a letter and then scan it and so on? Well, there are many different other ways. Or what if they don't even have these means of communication? All you can do is talk to them on the phone, or they're telling you, let's say in a case where the applicant claims that his home has been visited while the applicant was in the United States, and that the government is looking for them in their home country. And there are relatives who say that they've been asked about whereabouts of the applicant. Well, how do you prove this? Again, if you can't get anything in writing from those individuals who know, the neighbors, relatives that have been asked about you, well, you somehow found out this information. Maybe you talked to them on the phone, you had a conversation over Skype. What you can do is you can record those conversations. You don't have to necessarily even tell the other side that you're recording this to use for your evidence. I'm not saying it to do it secretly, but if it will help your case, if that's the only piece of evidence that you can find to support your case, then you should do it, because it can be determinative for the fate of your case. Again, the evidence doesn't necessarily have to be direct. It doesn't have to be direct proof of what had happened to you. It can be circumstantial. It can be just any evidence supporting anything written in your statement, asylum application, or declaration. It can be in many different forms. It can be a recording. It can be a writing. It can be a photograph. It can be a piece of some kind of item that you can use to demonstrate. But again, to emphasize the biggest evidence, the best and most important evidence, the most important testimony is your testimony as an asylum applicant, and you can be granted asylum without a single piece of other evidence or any other document. You can be granted asylum just based on your testimony. And that's the most important evidence for which you have to prepare very thoroughly when you apply for asylum.